Hey there. We are going to go over how I did this D&D remaster. Just gonna basically walk everybody through all the important steps so you know exactly how I did everything. And you can see right here before me, or before us, whatever, I've got all of this stuff sort of cut down real short. I've got just the intro part right here, and then of course a clip of episode 27, just so we can see what's going on. And I am just going to walk everybody through a build up from scratch, and we're going to use episode 1, which I already have imported up here, but we're just going to walk through the whole entire process. So the first thing that you're going to need to do, you have to determine exactly what you're wanting from the whole project. For this, I knew that I was wanting 4K, and I wanted to beef this up from the original format. We might as well just go over this real quick. So this is episode 1, The Night of No Tomorrow, if I remember correctly. 21 minutes, 49 seconds, 25 frames in length. The resolution 630 by 480. Frame rates 29.97, and the video codec used on YouTube, where I retrieved this from, was the H.264, so it's not a very good starting point to begin with. The resolution for expanding it this degree is trash. And the codec, it's going to have artifacts in it just because it's in H.264 on YouTube already. So it's a bad starting point, but you know, hey, we'll see what we can get out of it, right? So that's the mindset I had going into this. Anyway, so going back to the project settings. So we'll jump up here to the file menu, pop down to project settings, and you want to go up. You want to switch this over to what your timeline resolution that you want to go for as your default is, and so on and so forth. And originally, I did a version of this in 2997, and it still didn't seem quite right when I played it back full screen, so I decided to go ahead and step it up to 4K 60. But you don't have to do that initially in your project settings. You can do that when you set up a timeline. So, for instance, we'll just do that right now. So let's say timeline, create new timeline. And what I did over here, well, let me just explain everything. So I right-clicked over here, timelines, create new timeline, where you can just hit Control-N. You can give your timeline a name unless it's not a gigantic project and you can keep track of what's going on. You can set the number of video tracks and audio tracks if you already know what you're going to need. This is critically important. And you can use previous project settings if it matches what you're wanting. If not, then you unselect this and you can pop over to Format. You can set it up to do whatever format you want here, and then since our project settings were the 2997, we know we want to double this. I go down here, and double 2997 is the 59.94. So we click this, and then I did not want it to automatically scale anything. So in the scaling, it usually defaults to scale an entire image to fit, and I don't want it messing with the image in any way whatsoever. I wanted it to, you know, maintain as much quality as possible. So center crop with no resizing. And for this particular video, what this means is it's going to just pop it in the middle of the screen and not try and stretch it out to fill the entire frame. So boom, boom, create. And there we have it. And this would be our new project all laid out. And then this would be our starting point. From here, let's pop up to episodes, and I'll pop this over here. And just drag this down onto our timeline. And here we have the entirety of episode 1. And let me turn off this and this, because we don't want it to do anything altering it. Okay, so like I was saying, and you can see now, the black frame here is what represents the full scene, which would actually be the full screen of the 4K project, and this is how much space the original size takes up. So as you can see, it's tiny. Now, if a person just wanted to just go in and make this project as quick as possible, you could pop over here, turn on the graphical adjustment tool, and then you can just grab a corner and stretch it out, and boom, there you're done. And, go on about, finishing off the render and so on and so forth. So let's undo that, turn this off. Alternatively, you could go over here, and if you had turned this on, now pay attention to these numbers over here. If I were to grab this handle and start stretching it, you can see these zoom numbers are increasing. So instead of doing that, we could just go over here and start sliding out our zoom until it fills up the full screen. Alternatively, if you're wanting to do something this simple, just expanding it to full screen, then instead of doing this in the first place, what you would want to do is in your project settings, actually, let's just go to the timeline. Yeah, in the project settings, we'll pop up here. And as you can see, you jump down. Where is it? Yeah, image scaling. We jump down here, scale entire image to fit. We'll just use this. Pop in here, grab this, drag it down, boom, and it scales the image out already really massively. And it just, as you can see, the quality, it's exactly what I was complaining about. It's not all that great. So let's go back and file and project settings. We'll switch back. Center crop with no resizing. Save. Now we go in here, and this is where magic begins. So, oh, and it's already turned on, I forgot. Okay, so we have this as our scene. Now, to stretch it out the way I did this, I went over to the super scale, which to get access to this, you do have to have the studio version of Resolve. But anyway, if you don't want to use the normal scaling algorithm, then and you want the AI access, then you have to upgrade to the studio. But anyway, I'm just going over how I actually did this. So we turn on the super scale, and it defaults to the 2x enhanced, which doubles the size of it. And I wanted it as large as possible without having to do 2 passes. And that's what this is. So that's what we've got. Now, additionally, we could grab this, and this is the reference of the original frame that it's showing you. This is how big it started, and this is how big a 4x scale is. So it's a massive difference. Additionally, we can go in and finish scaling it out to the rest of the full screen, and as you can see, the quality is, it's better than just scaling it blindly. And you could leave it like this and just do a quick export. But one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of mess around and show you exactly how I did the project. So here's what we're going to do. You know the basics. We're going to jump back over into this other timeline where I had this example already set up, and I'm going to discuss how we set up this title and so on and so forth. And there's some audio mastering I want to go over real quick. So for the title, let's get this out of the way. And what you're seeing here is not a black background. This is a non-existent background. It just registers as black when you're on the edit page. So what I did to do the title, And you can do this a couple of different ways. You can set up a fusion composition, which there's a couple of different ways you could do that. Let me switch this down a bit. You could come over here and drag in fusion comp, which I have this in my favorites, but to find it, the easiest way, type in here, fusion, and it'll pop up fusion composition. Now you notice I have this little star lit up here. That's why it's down here in my favorites. So I don't have to search for it or remember where it's at. I can just go down here and drag a fusion comp in. And boom, done. So from here, we would be able to... Oh, and the reason this is grayed out when it's down here and not when it's up here is because I have this video track turned off so that it would just display the text here. So this text is fairly straightforward and easy to do. You can do it inside a fusion comp, just starting off however you want it to, and then just build it up from there. Or you could do it the easy way, which is how I did it. Went over here to titles, and if you do not see this area, it's because you have the effects turned off. Just pop up here, turn those effects on, and you'll have this little section up here. Just pop down to titles and grab yourself a text plus. We'll slide this in here, and it tells us custom title. So let's just do a remake for episode 1. How about that? We're not going to want it to be 5 seconds, so let's drop it down to about... that looks good. This is about 2 seconds. And then I'll do a fade out of 12 frames. That usually feels about right. So here we are with our basic title segment in, and then we need our custom title set up and so on and so forth. So here's how we do it. You go over here, type in what you want. Let's go with episode 01. Boom. Problem solved. Go up, pick out whatever font you want to use. Got some weird ones in here. I don't even remember what I used. I guess I could just pop over here and look real quick. Masquerade. So yeah, I used Masquerade. Where is it? Right here. Okay. So this is what we've got for our basic title. And if I play this back, notice there's no effects. Whereas if I play this back, there's all kinds of effects. Let me mute this audio track real quick. So if I play this back, I've got this sort of fiery background going on in here. How did I manage to do this? Well, that's where it gets really interesting in Fusion. What it turns out, if you click on these, you'll notice up here, there's this little magic wand in this text box. You can click on this, and it takes you over into the Fusion page, and it will generally start out, as a matter of fact, let me pop over here and do this. It will generally start out with a... Oh, I did the wrong one. This is what we want. Okay, so it'll start out with your template fed into your media out, and that's all there is to it. And you'll notice that if I make sure the template is highlighted, all of these inputs are exactly the same for what you have over on the main page. I go back over here, either of these that I look at, it's all the same stuff that you can do over in Fusion. So this is where it gets interesting. Jump over into Fusion. We have this template, which is, let me disconnect this real quick. And what I did to do that, I just held down the shift button. Well, let me show you real quick. So I selected both of these. Just click and drag over them. Both of these are highlighted. I hold down the shift button and then click on the merge or the template. Either one does the same thing. And I just drag it off and it releases that line. And you'll notice if I hover back over the line and I'm still holding the shift button down, that line highlights again. If I let go here, it will reattach that line. If I drop it up here though, then it disconnects everything and keeps those separate. And you'll notice this text suddenly changed. So here's what's going on. So I hit the number 1, and it shows you what this text is. This is my overlay. And this, I'm going to hit number 2, this is the underlay. So as you can see, these are distinctly different. Let me just go ahead and this full screen. So you can see these are distinctly different. This has got a different look to it by quite a bit than this one does. So what's actually going on here? Alright, so if we go look over here, all the settings are set up and I did the sizing and everything in here, so on and so forth. No real big deals. Go into the layout. I used this to determine where my positioning is, and you'll notice I have this template selected. And I'm looking over here and it's showing that this has been moved, and you'll look over here and you'll see that these little buttons are highlighted. So what's going on is I can take this and move it up. Now you'll notice if I move this one moves. If I grab this one moves. That's because I linked these. What you'll want to do when you do these overlays like this is you'll want to make sure that you have linked nodes. And there's a couple of different ways to do it, but I chose to do it in a simplistic way because I wasn't sure exactly the direction I wanted to go to when I put these together. So anyway, we'll go over that here in a bit. So let's turn this one off. Turn this one on. We'll get rid of that. Okay. So we're just now looking at the base layer of what's going on here. So how did I get this interesting fiery effect? Well, if we have a look at this, I'll pop this over. We'll go ahead and put it back to full screen and we'll pop this on. And notice it's now completely and utterly unreadable. So if you want this Proto V2 effect, you can thank Patrick Sterling for this. Pop over to his channel and give him a thumbs up and a sub. This effect is just a great tool. You can do all kinds of wild stuff with it. Anyway, there's some presets that you can use to jump around and so on and so forth, all kinds of settings that you can get into. And if you really want to, you can even expand this out and look and see what's inside, how he's got this wired up, and dig into how this is built out. I don't want to get into that right now because that's a whole massive undertaking, and this is Patrick's baby anyway. So yeah, if you're interested in knowing a detailed layout for how this works, go hit up Patrick over on his channel and maybe he'll do a video explaining, go through a big walkthrough on the building of it and so on and so forth. Anyway, so here we have this going on. So how did I tame it and get it under control so that it looks like this? So here's what's going on. We go from this node, this is feeding into this merge node, but it's not exactly how you think it's going on unless you're familiar with Resolve, and then you do. The template is the base layer, which is being fed into here, and then the proto is going on top of this, and then I am taking the original template and using it as a mask on the merge layer. And that is why it is cutting this out really, really nicely. You can see the black areas. You can see exactly what's going on here, and it very nicely cuts everything out and keeps it all tame and within the bounds of this. So if I were to just kind of scroll through real quick, you can see it's pretty stuttery. The reason being, this is a really beefy effect. So if I were to play it, running on a 3090, it does help a little bit. So if your graphics card isn't really beefy, you're going to have trouble playing this effect back. And that gets into caching and stuff, and we're going to skip that for right now because it's a much more detailed topic to get into right now. Anyway, so basically how this starts out, you have their base template, you adjust your sizing, get your positioning and everything, adjust your sizing here, and then you adjust your positioning, get it all put in place, apply any effects that you want, and then drop it over onto a merge as the foreground, and then make sure and pull in a mask input here to do as your background. Now, why did I do it that way? If I unclick this as the background, then either I have to add a background in, and what I did was hit Control Spacebar. I have to add in a background, plug this in, and then go over here and make it transparent, or can get rid of that. I can just simply use the already existing template, pop it in here, and it just creates the background for me because this template has a default size to it, which is going to be tied directly to the project settings. Now, you'll come over here, if you look at this template where it says image, I clicked on this, and you can see under image it says width 3840, height 2160. Right down here, auto resolution. It's automatically setting the default size for this text input as the project setting. So that's the reason why I use template instead of a background. It just saves a whole lot of extra junk from going in on this. Alright, so let's talk about this. So here's what's going on our second bit of text. So what I wanted to do was kind of have that black outline overlaid on top of this and make it really, really bold so it was easy to read on top of everything else, but yet fit in with the text. Because if we jump over back here, put this back in, as you can see, it just kind of fades into this background. It gets kind of hard to see. And I wanted to make sure that there was enough of a distinction that you could make sure you could immediately see episode 27 or episode 1 or whatever it happened to be. So that's why I went ahead and created this overlay. Now, all I did to do this, literally I grabbed the template, hit Control C, moved over, Control V, boom, I've got another template. Oh, looky here. It's exactly like the original template. So anyway, I just created a copy of the original, and then I tweaked everything on that. And let's put this over here, and then we'll put this over here. So here's what we've got going on. Let's just move this over to the center for the time being. Alright, so what I did here, still got the same masquerade, the same size. What I did to connect this, because obviously at some point I wanted to change what the episode number was. Well, you'll notice if I go in here and I change this to, let's say, episode 28, you notice both of these updated. So how I did that, when you have your secondary template selected, you go in here and you click this. As a matter of fact, let me just do it this way. Ding. So we go in here and I right click and I click down here to expression. Click that. You'll notice this new box down here appears, and it has text, parenthesis, quotes, episode 27, close quotes, close parenthesis. Okay, so it's just exactly what's up here. Well, that's not what exactly we're wanting to do. We want to chain it to whatever is in here. So here's a really simple way to do this. You click this, you hit this little pin, you click your secondary, and you hit this little pin, and then you can go back and forth between these two, and you have your original template, and you have your copy template. And then all I do to link it to this little plus sign right here, I grab it and drag it, and you see this line that's connected. I drag it down here to this box. Boom, suddenly it says template.styled text. Problem solved. Now, if I change this, and whoops, let's switch it down here so we're looking at the right one. As a matter of fact, let's just go ahead and change the color, make sure we've got this. Okay, so we've got and this one's black. Okay, so if we go in here, this is our copy, this is our original 28. Now it updates. So this is how you tie anything to anything else. It's a really simple way of doing it, and really, really easy to deal with. So we'll change this back. Whoops, the cancel. Change this back. Get rid of this. And you can go through, and you'll notice, oh yeah, gotta unpin this. Alright, you can go through, you can see I've got this chained to the styled text for template. The size, I did the exact same thing. Right click on size, go down and click expression. If I click it now, it'll remove the expression, but you go down and it'll say expression, you click that, it'll have the little plus sign. You drag it to the input that you want, or you can type in an expression or whatever, so on and so forth. And in this case, it's fairly simple. For size, we know that we want to chain it to this node, which is called template. So you would type in template and then dot, and then we know the input that we want to chain it to is called size. So you would put size after that. It just depends on if you remember the names and blah, 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 so on and so forth. So anyway, I wanted the layout to also be the same. So if I move either of these, that they're chained together and they're moving in concert with each other. Same thing here. Right click, go down to expression, blah, 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 do the link up, so on and so forth. So over here, you'll notice that this white solid fill is selected. And so what's going on? Let me jump back over here and explain this. So right here, this is enabled when it's on number 1, white solid fill. This is enabled, and this is the default for how this looks. Any stylistic elements that you want to change, you can change coloration and so on and so forth, opacity, and just a lot of different stuff in here. There's softness parameters and positioning, and anyway, and there are other options that you can do with this. Well, over here is where I wanted to change this up. So as you can see right here, this is not checked. If I check this, obviously it enables this version of the text. If I click number 2, it's called red outline, but you'll notice down here in the color it's black. So what I've done is the white solid fill, which is what your text normally is disabled, and I've jumped over to the outline I increase the thickness ever so slightly, and then change the color to a solid black, and voila, we have this very nice overlay that can just pop on top of all of this. Whoops, I hit the F1. All of this to give us this really lovely end look. Whoops, I don't think I connected it. There we go. To give us this really lovely end look, which is right here. And you can see where this black template overlay just kind of basically creates a lovely outline around all of this, containing it. And then when we jump back over to the edit page, you can see it makes it stand out very distinctly no matter what's going on this page. So, next part. We're going to jump over here because this is where the real next part actually happens. Get this out of the way for the moment. So, here's what you do to set up the next segment. We drop in our clip that we want to use, and we do our super scaling. Then we can either click on it or right click on it, and you want to start by unlinking the clips so that way you're not dealing with the audio in conjunction. Right click again, and you can either come up here and create new fusion clip, or you can just go down here with your cursor over this and nothing else between this clip and your cursor, and then just come down here and click the fusion button to jump you over to the fusion page, and that brings you to this page. Now you do have to make some adjustments when you do it this way, unless you have a template already set up, and that's where you start building out your template. Let's jump back over here real quick. I can show you this pre-built template. So you can see there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not as complicated as it immediately appears to be. So first off, let's shift this over here. Now this is the stacks of the logo. So you can see right here, I've got this file. Pop this up. This is my logo. Here I have it transformed. You can see it's way over here off to the side. And then I have it merged onto this blank background, which is the 4K background. So we look at this merge. We have this over here, and then I have a duplicate node to duplicate all of these. So I only have to do this once on this side, and I did the exact same thing for the opposite side. You can see this box over here. This is where the logo has been moved to for this transform. Then the merge, so put it on this clear background, and then the duplicate. Boom, boom, boom. Easy peasy. Now how I did this, I did not create each of these separately. What I did is I pulled the logo in. I used a loader node, and to do that, let's see, I hit Control Spacebar, and then type in LO, pops up loader node, click add, and then it allows you to go in and pick out and it allows you to pick out a file. Here I'm in the Dungeons and Dragons folder, and I could pick out any of these clips if I wanted to, or if you have a graphical file specifically, you could pull that in, so on and so forth. That's how you use a loader node. Once you have it in here, it should already, it automatically opens up that the file directory, so you can pick out the file that you want. If you don't have it, then you go over here and you click browse, and you go and hunt for the file that you want on your computer, blah 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 blah, so on and so forth, and then you click open and it pulls it into the loader node. The reason I do this is because the loader node is less system intensive and uses fewer resources than a media input does. So that's why I don't have it over here in the media pool except for right here, which I did pull it in originally, so I knew which file I was looking for. But if you do that and I pull this in, you'll see it's a media in, and it does this, which I can literally just replace the loader node with this, and it literally makes no difference with what's going on. It does everything in exactly the same way. It's literally just doesn't use as much resources in your system. So I recommend, if you're using a specific image file, just use a loader node instead of a media in. It's just better on your system resources. So anyway, over here we have the media in. Yeah, just got through telling you don't use that. Anyway, with video clips, using a media in is the best way to go because, well, you're doing a video, so you want all of it in there. So here we have our video file that roll this forward, and you can see it's just playing through, and this is just this file right here, and you can see this is taking a heck of a lot longer to play and update. That's because this is the raw media file over here. If I hover over this, you can see it's the super scaled version of it, not the original image size, because that's what we clicked on when, okay, jump back over here to the edit page. When we click on this, we can see over here in the inspector, super scale 4x, so it's already been scaled up. If I, well, yeah, let's just turn this off. So it goes back to original size, and if we jump back over here now, and we hover over this, you can see down below the domain in image it says 626 by 480. So this is the original image playing back as the original image size. So pop back over here, we go back up to the 4x scale, and this is 2504 by 1920. So that's 4 times scaled up. That's what's being fed into this whole entire project. So, what goes on at this point? So I'll go into a transform. Obviously, something's changed pretty significantly. If we go look over here in the transform, you can see it's been scaled up by 50%, specifically 53%. Then we go down here, what's this background? This is a plain black background, and the reason this is pulled in is as an overlay. As you can see, this is going in on the foreground. If we look at the merge, how is this being overlaid? It's as an overlay, so whatever I'm doing, I'm darkening. Alright, so that gives you a hint as to what this is going to be. Here I have a 53% increase in size. Here I have a black background that is being put over top of this scaled up background. And if you guessed correctly, we're looking at the background image, which goes behind the main frame. And then down here we see a background image being used as the background for this merge node. Well, what's this? This is clear. So this is being used to control the size of the merge so that we can control what exactly is going on over top of this. It's probably not really necessary, but I was doing some experimentation here and I just didn't bother getting rid of this. You could just go straight through to the zoom blur, but anyway, so here we have this, which is an identical match to this. Then we go in for the zoom blur. That's how that background gets blown out all around the edges. And then this gets merged as the background with whatever this is as the foreground. So what's going on here? So first thing, you'll notice this little bitty node right here. This is just sort of an intermittent splitter. If you hold down Alt and grab anywhere within one of these lines, it'll create one of those nodes for you. And you can use it to branch out and so on and so forth. It just helps keep a project looking organized. So this is splitting the media in one, this direction and this direction. So we have two completely different feeds going on. We have our background feed going through here and our foreground feed going through here. So what are we actually looking at? We have the original image going into the splitter, going into the color corrector. You can see a little bit of a color correction has been put on here. And this is all that I did for pretty much the whole entire series. If you jump over here, you can see exactly what was done. Wee tad bump up on the saturation, wee bit on the contrast, nothing else is touched. That is put into a shadow node. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. That is put into a shadow node, and you can't really see anything with the shadow node going on. Well, okay, why not? What did I do with the shadow node? Well, if you pop over here to the merge, we look at that, you can see there's a little bit more going on here. Let's fit that to screen. Maybe if I wheel this forward a bit. There we go. You can see around this outer edge, it's kind of hazy right through here. So if I turn this off, you'll notice it creates just a little bit of a distinction between the background and the center frame so that it's not horribly distracting. And trust me, if I did not have that shadow there, the background actually is distracting. With the shadow there, it gives it enough of a separation that it's not super obvious. So anyway, that's why the shadow is in there. And then, of course, we talked about the logo already. And then we have the multi-merge node. So we have all of this right here going into the multi-merge as the background. This branch right here we have as layer 1. If I get the pop-up, there you go, multi-merge 1 dot layer 1 dot foreground. This right through here is layer 2. And then we have if you've got the layer 2 plugged in, layer 3 pops up that you can plug in, and this is always the mask. Anyway, if I click on this, you can see layer 1 and layer 2, and you can see both of these are done as overlays. This is where I have this stack of my logo popped on the sides. Really super simple. And then all of this is fed out into the media out node. Easy peasy. Now I could just simply bypass that, go straight here. You'll notice the logo disappears. Pop over here. Logo, no logo, no logo. Easy peasy. Alright. That brings us back to this piece. How do I deal with this? Obviously, I went ahead in the video, found where this was, found where I wanted it to come in, then I selected it. I would copy it. What I do is hold down Alt, grab the video, drag it up, and then I kind of wiggle my mouse back and forth to make sure it's still in sync. Not necessary, but I don't know, I'm pedantic about that. Click this. Okay, what I did there, let me undo that real quick. So I Alt and dragged this up to the next line, let go of it. Then I hit the B key, and if you pay attention up here, my cursor is selected. If I hit B, it jumps over to the blade, and obviously it shows you right there. If you hit A, it jumps back to selection mode. So I hit the B key, clicked where my cursor was, so we have that alignment. Then I click hit the A key to select my cursor mode again. Click this, hit my backspace to delete this. Then I slide this back to the beginning, and then I go back and align it with the video, the spacing of the episode title, and then I would go and hit the B key and clip it so that it was in line with the end, and then I would hit the A and this and hit backspace, and all that's gone. And then all you're left with, I want to move this, whoops, move this out of the way, and then all you're left with is this little piece right here, and it's nothing but text. So let's go through and walk through exactly how this is built. Pop in here. You'll notice this same stack with the logo is here, and it's right here. And then we have this. So here's what we've got: the logo stack that you're already familiar with, and then the main background itself. So what is actually in this main background? So the media in, it's exactly what we think it is. It's just this image that we clipped out, or video that we clipped out. I have a background node here, which is just a simple solid black, because you don't need anything special with this, because we're going to be expanding it to fill the screen. So just a simple background. This gets fed into a merge node, and to bring any of these nodes in, all I'm doing, I hit Control Shift, brings this up this little window, and you just start typing for like a merge node, MER, and usually within the first few letters it will have that selected, and you can either hit add or just hit enter, and then it will pop down the node that you were looking for. So anyway, put this into a merge node, and whoops, I did that wrong. So put this into a merge node. So this is black background. As you can see, the black background all around through here. That goes over top the black background because this is in the foreground input. There's no mask, so it's not cutting anything out. Then all of this goes into a transform because we're looking at enlarging it like it is over here. Let me go ahead and make that full screen. So we're looking at it, enlarging it, so we need to put it into a transform, and you can either hit the control space bar to do it the easy way. TRAN, there's our transform, boom. You can add it that way. Or if you want to use the little hotkeys up here, you could also click this, or you could click and drag, you know, however you want to put it in. Anyway, so transform, and then as you can see, I've already sized it up and moved it, so on and so forth. So the size is a little bit more than 57% expanded, and the y-axis, I moved it down just a tad. So here's what's going on. The transform here is used to adjust where this background image is located, and that is used to make room for the episode whatever number. And then a little bit of a color correction on stuff because I wanted to change up how everything was done on the background just a tad bit. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to make the title pop just a little bit. You know, it's not something that's necessary, but, you know, whatever, just to give it a little bit of extra pop. And it's basically about the same as what I did for the rest of the video. Just a wee bit of a boost in the saturation, just a wee bit of a boost in the contrast, and nothing else is touched. This could be just left out entirely. We could just feed that in, and then, you know, it would be like this, but whatever. It's a matter of just personal taste at this point. And then obviously, exactly the same with the logo fed into the media out. All right, so those are all the basics of how this is done. Now you'll notice I'm over this, but I'm not seeing the episode. And that's because I have this video tag disabled. So if I click this, episode 27 pops up, and now we have the whole thing. Boom. Great. Wonderful. So on and so forth. The next thing that we got to deal with. How do we get this audio done correctly? So you'll notice. Okay, so we've got all this going on throughout. How do we mess with the audio? There's a couple ways you could do that over here. Where is it? Excuse me. I can't remember how to do it right at the moment. I never do this in the edit page, so it doesn't really matter to me. Anyway, I'm going to show you the best way to do it. You jump over into the Fairlight page, which is where you're going to primarily do your audio anyway for stuff like this. So for this, normally you wouldn't do it this way, but for something like this, the best way to go about it is to just do a simple normalization, and the reason being is because you don't have to have any special plugins, and this has already been edited and mastered for television. But if I select this, I go down here, analyze audio levels, and I click analyze, it's going to go through and analyze this entire audio track, tell me what my audio levels are. Now for YouTube, you want it peaking somewhere thereabouts of -1, and you want the LUFS to be hitting somewhere thereabouts of -15 to -14-ish, somewhere in that area. And as you can see, the true peak, we're hitting -7.2, so we've got a lot of headroom here. And for the loudness, -24.5, we've got a lot of headroom that we can go up here. So really, what we want to do is we want to boost it by approximately about 6 dB, somewhere in that range. So we can either do that either a couple of different ways. Either you can come over here to the channel levels and you can just literally bring it up by that much. But we don't want to do it that way. We want to actually be intelligent about it and have as much accuracy as possible. So come over here, normalize audio levels, and you can see, can't grab it. Okay, whatever. Anyway, as you can see, target level, I've got it set to -1.5, and my target loudness set to -15. So if I click normalize, now what it does is it goes through and it reprocesses this entire channel, bringing the levels up, and it's trying to get as close to my target levels as possible, and it's not going to be able to attain both perfectly. And as you can see now, these waveforms suddenly got a little bit bigger, especially when you look at this waveform over here, which is unaffected, and then this waveform, which has been normalized just now. So if we go back over, we can see the difference. I'll just reanalyze these audio levels real quick. It'll scan back over, and then we can see how close to our target levels we actually are getting with all of this. And and there we go. So now we're hitting -1.6 and -18.9. So we're really close to about as good as we can possibly get on here. So done. There's no need to even do anything else. Now you don't need to use any plugins or anything to waste extra system resources. Now I'm going to undo this and show you the way I did it. Okay, so I have access to a whole horde of plugins, and I happen to have a personal preference when it comes to mastering. I like to use the Waves L2 Ultra Maximizer. And what I did in here, I set this to -1, and I set this to -1, and that's it. Done. Then I just came in, played it, and then just basically grabbed this and started slowly bringing it down to where I remember the previous peak being. And I remembered that it was -7.2.
Sheila, can't you do something about your little brother?
I go back here, and I can see it's still not hitting my out ceiling. It's still clear of my threshold. So that means I can bring this up. Now, if you happen to remember when I did, let's just do it again real quick. So what I'm doing with this L2 Maximizer, I'm actually trying to target the LUFs, is what I'm doing. And I can actually get a closer approximation than if I do the normalization, because this is just an absolutely magical limiter. I freaking love this. I've used these for a long time. So, you know how I said the LUFS target that I wanted was -14.5, and it's at 24.5. So if I take this and pull it down to about -10-ish, and I can go through here, play this, and I know my true peak is right here. I know that it's going to be clipping on some of this stuff if I didn't have this limiter here. So what this is going to be doing is it's going to be crushing these super hot peaks, getting those transients out of the way, and it's going to bring this overall loudness much closer to my -14 LUF target than the -18 LUF target when I did the normalization. Most people are never going to hear the difference, but if you want to get really technical with it, then you know this is the way you would want to do it. And if I really wanted to go in and tweak everything, I could also pull in like a LA2A or something like that and do some compression or some multi-band compressor, blah blah blah. Anyway, I just wanted to keep this really simple, so I just used my L2 Maximizer for it and was done with it, and that was it. So popping back over here, we went over how we did the video for this, all the effects necessary to get this effect around here. I went over how we did this, how we did this. We have this little audio clip from down here. How did we get that? Literally, it's just when you find that endpoint. I'll locate this right here. Okay, so if we listen, you have that audio there. So what you do is you find that point of audio that you want. Okay, so we wanted that to come in right about there, and we'll clip this, and we'll clip this, and then we'll hit A again, and we'll grab this and Alt drag it down, and done. Then you just drag your audio back to the beginning where you want it. Make sure I don't run into anything. Drag it back to here, and then you have your in. Oh, whoops, had that muted. So your input audio comes in and plays through, and then goes right into the main audio. Really super simple. Really, there literally isn't anything more than that. Well, other than the fade in, which I didn't. I as you can see, this comes in before this audio clip ends, and all I did was just there's these little handles pop up when you hover over the audio clip. Just go up here and grab this, drag it over to where you want it to start fading, and then as it plays, it will ride that audio volume down and then come in with the other. Real super simple stuff. Nothing major going on with that. Okay, so let's jump back over to timeline 2, where I actually have finished clips, and then we'll jump over to oh yeah, actually there's one other thing you're going to want to do, the thumbnails. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can do this. The easiest way is to simply pop over to the color page, which is this button right here, and then you right click and you click grab still, and then it will pop up a image over on this side. And as you can see, I've got all of these different images, episode 1, 2, 3, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, all the way here. And the reason I did it this way is because the way I did the project, let me jump back over and zoom way out. You can see I have all of these episodes here. Episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. There's 27 episodes altogether. So how I kept these organized was just merely a matter of just doing one after the other. And as you can see, it numbers all of these as I go through, so on and so forth. And this here, episode 27, which is this image, what I did is right clicked on this, and you'll notice when you do this, after you save that particular or after you grab that particular still, and it pops up the image over here. And if you don't see this, it's because your gallery is not selected. Just click on gallery up here. You'll hover over this and it'll suddenly change to something completely different. What it's doing is it's looking at the top clip. If I right click on this, then it looks at the whole entire segment of video at that frame. Then I can go down here and I can click export. And as you can see, this is the last place I exported files to. And then you'll want to give it a name, so on and so forth. You'll want to make sure that you save it as JPEG or TIFF or PNG or whatever. For YouTube thumbnail, you want to save it as a JPEG. Now, what this is going to do, it's going to save this particular file right here, but you don't want to include all of this numbering behind it because it'll just add more numbering onto that. You want to give it the name. In this case, I titled it D&D 27 _ thumb, and I typed that in here and then hit export, and it exported this file and it added the tag 3.27.1, which matches this right here. In this folder there is another file that is I think it's a DXR or DRX, anyway, whatever. There's another file that is a DaVinci Resolve file that it'll put in there with it, which is what it initially saves it as, DPX. That's what it is. Anyway, for the thumbnails, you're going to want to save this as a JPEG, and then deal with converting it down to a smaller size. And how I did that is I go to I don't know if I can get to it from here because I'm doing a screen recording. There we go. So I use Affinity Photo, and let me just pop this up, and here and here and here and here, and then I drag this over here. It opens up. I go to File, Export, here 1080, here 95, because there's a huge size difference, but there's the visual difference is almost indistinguishable. And then export, and then it asks me for the name, and that's where I change the 3.27.1 to HD, so that way I know this is the 1080p export. and then just close that down. And then we'll show you the size differences here. The 4K is 2.89 megabytes, and the HD export is 652 kilobytes. So massive size difference between those. And the over 2 megabyte files are too large for YouTube, so you do have to downsize it. But anyway, that's how I go about downsizing it. You can do it in a ton of different programs. It's really, really simple to do. You just might have to do a little bit of research on how you get to it. So anyway, back to here. That's how we do the thumbnail. So we've got the thumbnail. We have all of our editing done, so on and so forth. You want to check, make sure everything's kosher on the project. And on some of these, you'll notice there's a little cut right here. This is because this file cuts off exactly at this point. The music just, as a matter of fact, just disable these. This is what you end up with. And you notice it plays that last hit and then just suddenly cuts off. So what I would do is I would find an episode that was good, clip the end of it, match the audio up, and you can only tell because the frame jumps. Anyway, not that big of a deal, and it is the end of the end credits, so I didn't care enough to really be perfect with it. Alright, so that covers all of the primaries. Now, about the AI interpolation. What I did on these to get the maximum possible quality, and use the AI interpolation to get it to use that for converting double the frame rate from the 2997 to the 5994. I go over here, select optical flow and speed warp. This will absolutely destroy your system performance, so don't do this until the absolute last possible moment before you're getting ready to export, because you cannot play back at full speed. If you're working on a very small project or something with no effects, then you can probably play back maybe, but with all the effects and everything that are going on in here, this just crushes your system performance. So you'll want to activate your retime and scaling so that it uses the maximum possible quality. If you've got your super scale going on, then we need to prep this for how we're going to do the in and out points. So I like to do it in here to make sure that everything's good. I can just give a quick scrub over everything, and if I don't want it to lock to those endpoints, I just turn off the magnet up here. So I can just give it a quick scrub across to make sure that everything's where it needs to be. And you'll notice I'm doing this and it is not updating the screen. That's because this optical flow and speed warp is doing a massive amount to these frames. If I go super slow, it's even stuttering really bad when I do this. So I go the slightest bit too fast, it completely starts skipping again. So you can skip around, look at your project, make sure everything's kosher. Once you're happy with that, I always make sure my magnet's on. Go in and I hit I to create my endpoint. Then I go to the end of my video. Zoom in. Make sure the audio is fading out the way I wanted it to. Once I'm satisfied that the audio is good on the end of it, then I hit O to set my out point. Then I hit this last little button over here to go to the deliver page. And that is where you get all of this. So you can also hit your in and out points over here. If I hit Alt I and Alt O, it clears the endpoints and such, but it forces the whole project when you're in the deliver page. So you can come in here, set to your beginning. I hit I, it sets my endpoint. And since this is the very last one, I don't have to worry about setting the out point because it's automatically going to be at the very, very end of my project. So I hit O. My out point's done. Don't even need to do that since it's the end of the project. And then you want to go over and set your settings. How I did the export, I like H.265 because it maintains a lot of the quality, but it's smaller than H.264. And then I do the Intel Quick Sync because in testing I have proven that on my system this is the fastest of the rendering. You want to make sure that it still maintains your resolution and frame rate as it's supposed to, which it should just use whatever your project is set up for. This is done for 4K and 5994. So we're good to go here. If you set up any proxies or optimized media or anything that you want to use, you would go down in advanced settings and do that. I didn't because I didn't need to, so no big deal. And then you go through, once all of this is done, all of this stuff is set, you're good to go. Then you can either, if you know for sure it's going to go to the right location, you can just give it a name, or you can do it the quick way. If you haven't set the file location yet, you can click Browse, and then you can go through your file directory, go to the right location, which, you know, this is episode 27, so this is the location I would want it to be in. We could step up and you can see all of these are done in a separate folder. So I wanted it to go in 27, and then I, of course, obviously wanted to give it the same name as the directory, as the episode, so I would give it that. And since I'm rendering this as 4K 60, on the end of the file, which, yeah, there goes the pop-up. At the end of the file, you can see it's Dungeons and Dragons dash episode 27 dash The Winds of Darkness 4K 60.mov, and that's what I would type in here, and then I would hit save, and we're just going to click this and click save, and already exists. You want to replace it? Yeah, and so on and so forth. Then I would go over here and click add to render queue, and it'll pop up the job, and of course I did these in order. So job 1 is right here, Night of No Tomorrow, it's episode 1, and then episode 2, which is job 2, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, all the way down through these. And there's only one last thing I have to discuss on this. I'm going to hit Alt-I and Alt-O to get rid of the in and out points. And so, how did I deal with going from all of this stuff in episode 1 to all of this stuff in episode 2? What I did is I copied and pasted everything from one episode to the next. I would literally, for instance, if I were going to do Requiem as the next one, I would grab this, click on this, and I would grab this, Control, and click on this. So this is my sound and my title, and I hit Control C, and I zoom way out. I go to the end of this, and I zoom in, and I hit Control V, and boom. We already have the audio for the beginning of the next episode and the episode title, and then I can go in here and do an episode 28, and all of this is linked as we discussed how to do that in all this Text Plus node, over in Fusion. It automatically updates everything for episode 28, and then I would go in and I would grab my next file. Let's just grab one, bring that in here, and then I will go, and I'm looking at the audio right here, dragging it in, making sure I don't hit this, pull this up, and I'll go to the end of this where it fades out. And now I'm watching, whoops, let me turn this off and turn this off. I'm watching what's going on here in this screen. And as it fades in and the little boy starts moving, that's right where I want it to come in as this completely dissolves out. So we'll pull this up a little further in case there's any aberrant noise in the early parts of this. And make sure everything's good to go here. Alright, no problems. Next up, I'll slide this out. Jump over here. We'll go through the process here. I know tomorrow, that looks about right. So now I'm going to unlink the clips. I right-clicked, clicked the link clips, which if they're already linked, this, whoops. If they're already linked like they are now, when I right-click on them, there'll be a little check mark down here. I just make sure that's unchecked. Then I grab this, Alt, drag up, give it a little bit of a wiggle to make sure they're matched. Hit B, clip it, hit A, select this first part, hit the backspace, zoom out, pull this all the way to the beginning here, zoom in, hit B, clip this, hit A, select the last part, backspace, pop over here, pop into Fusion, drag all of this middle stuff, and this is the reason why the media in one is way over here and the media out is way over here. That way I can just grab all of this, copy with Control C, move back over here, go back to the Fusion page, drag this over, click where I want my stuff to be copied in, and then paste. Then I grab this, drag it to my input here, drag this to my input over here, and boom, here we have this. Now I can go, I can do my super scale, get that set the way I want it here, and if I pop over here, you'll notice this is super scaled now. The reason is because this clip and this clip are using the same reference file. So you don't have to super scale it on both once you do it on this one. Now to do this one, there's a little bit of an extra step that you have to have. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to copy the Fusion information from here, then all the nodes that we used, to that next piece. Okay, so I'm over it. I've got that selected. I hit Fusion. What happens? Oh, wait a minute. It's got the title selected. Well, this is not what I want. Okay, so what you have to do, very simple. You can either select this and hit D to disable that track, or, whoops, hit the wrong one. You can hit D to disable that track, and then it will take you into it, or to keep it easy on yourself, you can come back over here to the row that it is in. I have this labeled episode. Disable the video track. Then notice this is now disabled here, and it takes me to exactly the same place, only I have an easy reference point to re-enable it. So I select all of this, Control C, copy, pop back out of that, Alt and middle scroll wheel to zoom out, and Alt and middle scroll wheel to zoom in, and you'll notice this text node is also disabled because the whole track is disabled, so I can just put my cursor over the clip that I want and jump straight into Fusion, drag my media node out of the way, click where I want it to paste it, Control V to paste it, and I drag this into my foreground input. I drag this, my output of my multi-merge, to the input on the media, and boom, it's scaled up, blah blah blah. We jump back out here, we go over here to the track, re-enable, episode 28. Okay, so now I decide, oh, wait a minute. I don't like where this is located. Well, if you happen to remember, in the Fusion, where, well, let's just jump to the Fusion. Remember over here in the layout, we used this to determine where it's located. And I had linked the center using an expression to the template center for the original template, so that both of these will move together. So instead of having to go and adjust those two pieces of it separately, I can just go here, click on this, go to layout, and then I can bring this up just a wee tad till it looks about right, and done. Then I would go endpoint, zoom out with the Alt scroll, zoom in on the end, check the audio, make sure everything looks good. That's a proper fade out, and O to hit my out point, hop back over into the deliver page, make sure my in and out point's good, pop up here, go find the right location that I want it to go to, give it the right name, so on and so forth. Double check my settings to make sure they're good, add to render queue, boom, it adds the next title to the render queue. That's how I went through basically. Once you get that first episode set up, let's just jump back over here. And we'll just zoom all the way out. Once you get your very first episode set up, that's all you got to do. And there, you could do it a little bit different way. Instead of doing it this way, what I could have done in the Fusion, instead of, whoops, that's the text. Instead of doing it that way, I could have just jumped into, well, maybe better zoom in here to show you exactly what's going on. Alright, so instead of doing it that way, I could have popped in here, replaced this media in with a different media in, jumped to my media pool. So instead of this media clip, I could use episode 2, pop that in. But if you notice, when I did that, and this is really super important, if I go over here and I look at this video is slammed against the left edge. This is as far as it'll go in this direction. Okay, so whoops, I forgot to jump forward. Okay, as a matter of fact, let's just disable these. So we're against the hard left edge on this. I go here, they look exactly the same. So let's roll it forward just a bit. How about right here? So, in theory, if I were to take any particular episode, if it's perfect, I can just pop the next one in and it should be exactly the same frame. Well, that is not the case. You can see this is a drastically different location, and again, a different location. This one was much closer, but it's still not the same. It is like this every single episode. They don't all start at the same place, and so this is why I did not use this method to go in. If you do have video that starts at exactly the same time code and everything is aligned, there is a way to streamline that a little bit easier. But since I did not have that, none of this stuff could be streamlined that way. So the easiest way to streamline the workflow is just copying and pasting these outer two, which I didn't do the intro on this one. Anyway, whatever. The outer stuff, the episode title here, and then I would do the audio clip for the fade in, which it appears I did not come up with the idea on episode 2 yet either. anyway, I'd grab this and the fade in audio clip and copy that to the beginning of the next, exactly like what we just did. And that was the process for every single episode. As a matter of fact, it looks like episode 5 is the first one that I got the idea to bring in the audio for the beginning of it. So whatever. Anyway, yeah. So this is how I built it out. Just copy and paste this, just pop in, copy the stuff from the Fusion clip, copy it into the next one. As a matter of fact, we'll just jump in here. As you can see, all the same stuff here. We jump ahead again. All the same stuff here. So on and so forth. It's just copied and pasted. And if I needed to if there were any obvious coloration differences that needed to be dealt with, then I would make a minor adjustment in that particular episode's color node. Specifically, right here, the color corrector. This is where I would make any minor tweaks, like right here, this is saturation of 0.1 boost and contrast of 0.16. I think one of the other episodes that we had looked at, I think it was 0.19 on the contrast, and I think we saw a different one that was a different on the saturation. Anyway, just minor tweaks on any of them, but I didn't go through and do anything serious. Now, the thing with doing it this way is there is, if I was going to properly do a really good color grade on any of this stuff, obviously I would have done any of that in the color page. This was just done for speed and to give it a slightly more modern look. There are some episodes that didn't look all that great, in my opinion. Where was it? Can't remember which one it is. I think it's the one with Lucian. I don't remember what number episode that is. Anyway, some of the whites on his armor got washed out during certain scenes, and I didn't particularly like that very much, but I didn't catch that until after I had started the rendering, and it was like halfway through, somewhere around like 2 to 3 hours into it, and I was like, okay, well, am I going to stop this and start it over, or just let it go? And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to let it go. So that's the stuff you got to deal with when you're rendering episodes quickly like this. Just a quick color grade is not going to work great for all the way through. And there's just different spot areas that you could deal with much, much better if you were doing stuff in the color page and properly matching everything. What episode is that? Anyway. Well, I guess I'm not going to find it right off because I don't remember which episode Lucian's in. Anyway, I'm sure somebody is going to know. You can pop that in the comments or whatever. But yeah, that's how this whole entire project was done. Like I said, it's very simple, really straightforward. And I guess for wrap up, we could do something a little bit different. And we can pop in here and tell you what. Yeah, let's try that. Let's go. Oh, gonna have to get that out of my way. Let's pop this open and go over to. Yeah, we'll go over to Unsplash and let's see if I can find a console television. I don't have exactly what I'm looking for. Maybe that's too specific. Let's just go with television. We might be able to use that one. Well, let's have a look at this. Free to use. All right. Let's put this in. We'll just call this the test folder. And save. All right. We'll go in here, open up the test folder, and we'll just go up to the master. Drag this. Should we drag it in? Yeah, whatever. It's not that important. Alright. So, instead of doing any of this stuff, let's just disconnect this entirely. And then we'll pull the television down here. And we want... That's done as a background, so we want this done over as a foreground. So, okay. Let me rename this real quick. Call this TV. So, what I'm doing now, I'm dragging this in front of the merge over here. What this will do, if I just go ahead and drop it here, it will create a merge that is already connected in line. And it will put this as the foreground. So, what I want to do now, we're going to go here. I can either click on this and it will automatically add it in line here, or alternatively, control spacebar, transform, and then hit enter and it pops it in for me. Either way, it's exactly the same thing. So we want to scale this up. We'll make it like that. Slide this over ever so slightly, and then we're going to need I don't want to do it that way. I want to select the TV, and then I'm going to click the rectangle, and it's going to add that mask over this. Alright, so now we're going to pop this over here so we can see what we're doing, and then we're going to select our rectangle, and as you can see, there we go, as you can see, all of this is a checkered pattern, which means it's transparent. So our rectangle mask, if I remove it real quick, you can see what it is masking out immediately. That's not exactly what I want it to mask out. I just want to do the screen real quick. So first off, we're going to size this down about right here, about right here. And then we'll come over here. Notice rectangle 1, so our mask is what's selected. Bring up the corner radius a bit. And then we'll, let's put a little bit of a soft edge on that. Let's try that. We'll see what that looks like. Alright, and 2. Okay. And then invert. Alright, so for a super quick mask, there you go. You can now have it as if. We'll get rid of that. And we'll get rid of the media pool. Drag this down. And so now we have our console TV sitting here. So now it's a matter of, let's just get this size the way we want it. We want it to fill the whole frame. And notice now we have a problem with it cutting out the top and the bottom, so shrink that back down so it's not doing that. And then we'll just scooch this over, say about right there. That kind of looks good. And then we can go in here. Let's see, should we do it that way or not? I guess we could. Alright, let me just go ahead and get this stuff out of the way, because we're completely bypassing this. All of this stuff is not currently being used. So we'll just pop this over here and get this out of the way. Oops, there we go. And get rid of that. Okay, so we're going in from immediate in, straight into the color corrector, straight into the merge. And you'll notice that the aspect ratio has changed. So this is the problem that you have now, and this is how you fix it. What you do is you bring in a background and another merge to put this over top of. So instead of using this, I'll just do it brand new. So I hit Control Space, background, and then we'll disconnect this. And I grab this, drag it here over the output, so it creates a merge for me when I let go. Then I drag the merge output over to this merge, and now, I'm still looking at the wrong thing here. So now I go here, and here is where I go and change my size. So it's going to be Ultra HD, so 2160 if I remember right. So now this background, go over into the image. You have to deselect the auto resolution. You set your size. Then you pull in your foreground on top of that. It is now properly sized. And then I can bring that directly into this, where I can take the television and merge it over top of that. And there's a couple ways you can do this. Okay, so the first way, you could grab this merge and you can just slide it over to match everything in the way you want it. I don't recommend doing that. What I recommend doing is going and adding in another transform in line with this, and then use the transform to do your adjustments for your spacing and everything. And then you go in and you can size it however you want to fit in with that TV. We'll get this over here. This needs to be just a tad wider. So we'll size this up just a hair. And there we go. So now we have our old school television, and it's playing back on old school TV. So if we pop over here and drop the super scale, oh yeah, that's right, I have to, because it fills it. Okay, so now if we play back, now we have our old school television with the video playing inside the television. There's some more stuff you could do to this. Obviously you could use probably a Bezier curve would work best. That way you can get these lines really smooth, because all of this is curved. There are no angles anywhere around the edge of this television, and you could tweak the curve with the if you popped in B-spline and use the Bezier curves to get everything around here perfect. I guess you could also do the same thing with the polygon node, because you can convert the node points into Bezier curves. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, if you want to get it perfect, you're going to have to use either the B-spline or the polygon node to do it, which I guess I can just walk you through that real quick. So if you were to do it as a polygon node, and obviously I can't do it that way, because if I do it that way, then you can't see anything. What you have to do, and this is the easiest way I've found, select the polygon node, and then you go around and you set your points. And you're going to need it's right here for sufficient control. And then we'll close this up. So this is done, and you can see this last one, when I clicked it, I had slid my mouse a little bit, so you can see you can control these curve points, control how big the curve points are, so on and so forth. If I go in and I just attach this to the TV mask, then you can see how this is masked in and so on and so forth, and you have to make your adjustments and blah blah blah, and invert this and get your mask all nice and tidy in here. Ta-da! And we'll convert this into a curve. Get that. Whoops, added an extra point. Anyway, you could do this with a polygon. I don't recommend the polygon. I would recommend doing it with a B-spline. And alternatively, you could just go ahead and click the invert, so that way it inverts the mask right from the get-go. And with this way, you could go ahead and click the corners. We'll just do it sort of a very rudimentary setup here. So if we go I'll pull this out here, and I'll pull this out here, pull this out here, pull this out here, and you can see how it creates the curved areas and so on and so forth. And you can go in and tweak everything exactly how you want, but with a Bezier curve, it starts with the assumption that you're making curved lines and so on and so forth. Anyway, so you can do that. It would be definitely easier to do it with the B-spline than the polygon, in my opinion. I would prefer to work with the B-spline, but yeah, if you want to be quick, just use a rectangle and just use rounded edges, so on and so forth. You're going to lose a little bit of the frame no matter what. And I mean, if you really wanted to just get stupid with it and super accurate, you could go in and add something like a grid warp, and then deal with your overlays on your grid warp, how you're warping stuff in and so on and so forth. And instead of doing it on that's not what I wanted to do it on. Let's shift this over a bit. You could put the grid warp in here. So then what you're doing is warping the actual underlaying video. So you could kind of squeeze everything into frame and make it actually fit the rounded areas of the television and so on and so forth, and accurately, pseudo-accurately represent the curve of the old CRT screens. But anyway, like I said, there's a lot of really detailed stuff that you could do, that none of it's necessary, and obviously I didn't bother with any of it. But this is this is one of those ideas I did play with, and I mean, it's okay, but it's not what I was looking for. I wanted that sort of full frame feel, and this felt like it was just more constricted. We go full screen with this. You can kind of see that effect that it would have. And then, of course, alternatively, you could just keep it really super simple, and we could just bypass all of that, go straight to the media out, and then you can just have it like we did in the beginning, just black bars on the edge, and boom, you're done. If you just wanted to keep it super simple, yeah, options. So anyway, it's just there's a lot of options, and hopefully, and this video has gone on way too long at this point, so hopefully this gives you a great idea of how you would want to do whatever project that is that you're doing. Then set your in and out points, blah blah blah, then start your render. It's just a really straightforward process. Anyway, so yeah, if anybody has any questions or wants me to specifically cover some aspect of what's going on. You know, say for instance, you wanted to do this and you wanted to do your color grade over in the color page. Then, okay, well, how would we go about doing that? And, you know, we can kind of step through and find a good frame to reference. Let's just use this one right here. Okay, so drop this down, just add a little bit of intensity on the low end and the high end, and just that right there made this picture look more modern. It's that simple to do minor tweaks. You know, let's give it a little bit of a color boost, a little bit of a saturation pop, and now, you know, we have that slightly super saturated look. It's really, really easy to mess with it. We can, you know, do a hue change. You know, we could do all kinds of stuff. We could, you know, knock the highlights out of this or whatever. Anyway, ton of options once you get over into the color page and are interested in getting into this kind of stuff. But yeah, whatever. If anybody wants to know any specifics about anything that I've covered, just let me know. Or if I skipped over something and did talk about it sufficiently or explain something that I was doing, just let me know, and I'll either address it in the comments, or if it's a big enough topic, I'll just do another video. Anyway, catch y'all later.